Okay, so if you follow my channel for a little while now, you should know one thing. My two favorite phones of 2017, and actually the only two phones that I would personally still at this point consider of buying and using them as my daily driver, are the Xiaomi Mi 6 and the OnePlus 5. And I guess therefore also I got so many questions from people asking me which one is the best between those two, which one should I go for, the Mi 6 or the OnePlus 5. And I never really answer in the way of telling you which one is the best, because I don't believe in a best phone. There's only a best phone for you that fits your needs. And that's why, even though my personal winner is maybe one phone, doesn't mean it's also for you, because it could be completely other way. And what I will do is, since they are both my favorites, I will give you my as objective as possible opinions with also my subjective feelings and expectations and experiences of these phones. And that's why I definitely think if you watch this video, if you're struggling deciding between these two, it should answer your question for sure. I won't though unfortunately be able to make a direct side-by-side comparison because I sold one, and I will tell you in a few seconds which one and which one I chose to be my daily driver for 2017, but you will see pictures. Now, I don't want to spoil it too much. My personal daily driver and the winner for me, but just for me, is the Xiaomi Mi 6. And this doesn't mean at all that the OnePlus 5 is the weaker phone, because like I said, it really comes down to personal preferences. Because let's already start with the design. Why? Okay, just look at it. I got this time the blue one, and with the gold accents, I think it looks just so beautiful. I'm not saying that it is better, but for me, just due to the smaller size, the nicer, little bit more premium heft, I'm not going to say the build quality is better, because there are some imperfections. Like, for example, the buttons are a little bit sharp this time on this version, and the transition of the blue part due to the gold one isn't perfect. But it feels just so great in the hand. I also prefer glass back still, it's just smaller. And that's the main reason. Because also the main reason why I did not like my black version, so the 8GB version. I know there is a gray version available for the 8GB version as well. And I'm talking a little bit too fast, so let's calm down. Why? I did not like the black version. The coating or the finish of the black was just weird. It felt like a little bit of some powder coating always on. It felt very weird, like poured in flour. I didn't like that feel in hand. And in the end, it came down to pretty much two things. And that actually has a big impact on my overall decision. This one is just smaller, feels a little bit more premium due to the glass for me, and it's just easier to hold on, and it doesn't have this odd touch. But the OnePlus 5 is pretty much the only 5.5-inch phone that I felt really comfortable in the hand, that I would have been able to use as my daily driver, since I usually prefer smaller phones. It felt premium. Button placement wasn't quite my thing, which I prefer on the Mi 5 because of the volume rocker on the other side and so on. Fingerprint reader though was better, I have to give it to that. And I really like that. And if it wouldn't have been for the Xiaomi Mi 6, the OnePlus 5 definitely would have suited me, would have satisfied me totally. Now let's get to the next thing, and that is actually one kind of big weakness for so many people about the OnePlus 5. It is the display, and especially the low. I still don't quite get over it, low resolution. Why so many people say it's not a flagship? Because what I have to say, the resolution is not the highest, especially due to the AMOLED display. So many people don't see it as a flagship. But if you just use it normally after a few days, if you don't really check the specs so much, and if you just enjoy the amazing calibration, the vibrancy of this AMOLED display, it will suit you. Yes, there are issues. I'm not gonna deny that. The jelly effect and the jittery effect, which I still think is also a little bit part of the display. Because when I scrolled, that was still something that did bother me compared to the OnePlus 3T. I didn't see that little bit of some oddities in the scrolling. It wasn't like it's not smooth or something like that. It was just not quite as fluid. It felt a little bit weird. Similar to something what TouchWiz does. Now, the Xiaomi Mi 6 doesn't have a perfect display, and now with running MIUI 9, it actually got a little bit warmer and the contrast feels odd, but I still have to say it is a super nice display because it is quite sharp. 1080p on 5.15 inches works fine. Calibration isn't quite perfect and I can't really properly adjust it, but it gets the job done, and I really like this display no matter what. It's not the very best display, and I would say it's neck to neck. It really comes down. It feels a little bit sharper, but I actually would even if a little bit lower res or lower DPI, the OnePlus 5 display was actually more impressive. This is though very nice, but let's get to the next thing. Sound, the speaker. The speaker of the Mi 6 is just better. It's not nearly as loud as on the OnePlus 5, but it has this warmer sound. It also has dual speaker system with the front firing sound, and it just sounds way more high quality. The one on OnePlus 5 is super loud, but if you want decent quality, you need to lower that quality, the volume a little bit, but it's still totally fine. It's a really nice speaker, but I just will totally give the win to this one. Now, headphone jack, really good on the Xiaomi, especially with some customizations and so on, but really good is one step below what the OnePlus 5 got with very good. A little bit louder, a little bit higher quality, a little bit nicer, so I just preferred it. Now, when it comes to performance, this is actually quite a hard decision because there are some instances, and that's the issue, only some instances where the OnePlus 5 feels a little bit more fluid, a little bit more lightweight in some certain apps. But overall, and that's a little bit, after all, a little bit more important for me, the fluidity and this kind of smoothing of the scrolling felt just nicer because, let me quickly show this here, for example, on the Xiaomi Mi 6. Let's wait for it to cache. The scrolling here is so nice and smooth, and there is a little bit of motion blur there, yes, but there is also this, and I just can't really properly put this in words, this smoothing of the transitions. As you can see here, everything is so nice and smooth, and I just think this is more important, because if I would talk about faster and slower now with MIUI 9 on the Xiaomi Mi 6, that's also a reason why I wait for this comparison a little bit longer, is pretty much neck on neck. I don't really see a big difference, and I didn't really check because in normal daily use I don't notice a difference. But what I notice is that the OnePlus 5, even though it performs super fluid, super fast and super nice, great multitasking and so on, has a few apps like the browser, sometimes this app, and where you see this jitteriness. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a top 5 flagship performer, absolutely. But this just feels a little bit more polished, especially now with MIUI 9. Now, battery life, this is actually the odd thing. I would have totally given the Mi 6 the win, if not for one thing. Because the first day that I got this one new, I mean the first day on mobile data as my daily driver, battery life was amazing. I was getting around 6.5 hours on mobile data and usually like 9 hours on Wi-Fi. I was super happy. Just to see one day later that I dropped at least about 1 hour of screen on time, so about 5.5. So then it was pretty much on par with the OnePlus 5. That gets like 5.5 to 6 for me as well. And the issue here is just standby drain. Standby drain, and especially a little bit of some higher standby drain on mobile data, which I did not see on the OnePlus 5 at all. And this still has the slightly better battery life, especially on Wi-Fi. But if you have a long day where you don't use this phone actually that much, where it's mostly in standby, this will actually have a harder time getting past, because the OnePlus 5 was way more consistent when it comes to the standby drain. And in use it was also super fine. Now charging doesn't really matter. Both take about, this one took 1 hour and 25, or 120 or something like that, and the other one like 5 minutes of difference, doesn't matter. But it really comes down to how you use your phone, because I would actually see the OnePlus 5 being an easier 2-day phone with moderate use because of the better standby drain, where this one has an issue. But if you use this in smaller sections for a longer period of time, because in use the drain is absolutely top, then it is the better phone. And it's actually one thing, the standby drain is fluctuating a little bit, and I've tried it. You can tweak it, and I did all of that. Sometimes it just is better. And I had this also for the first time when I had this review unit. The first time I had great standby drain, then it was weak, and then it got great again. So now, at the moment, at least for right now, it's not that good. So it was way more consistent on the OnePlus 5. Now software, I'm not gonna even talk a lot about that, because OnePlus 5 totally wins. Those extra functions with the double tap on those buttons, the better ambient display, and a lot of features, the customization, the nice theming engine, or the theme engine from Oxygen OS is just so much better. I have to say, MIUI 9, or at least the beta that I'm running here on, made a few small but actually important improvements, because now I have finally double tap to switch between my apps. A few other things changed. What actually made a worse impression now, the experience is not that great anymore. Do not disturb mode is not available as a quick tile. You have to actually go into the silent mode and set it to do not disturb, and this is a way more inconvenient way to switch to do not disturb. Because do not disturb and silent is not the same thing, because silent actually even mutes the audio and so on, which is actually quite annoying. So I did not like that, but otherwise a few nice things. Also animations, I don't know quite if you can see that, but animations now are just way smoother. They pop in way nicer. And of course, this is a little bit hard to see, but as you can see here, this just now, in total, feels just more polished. It is exactly what it should have been already from the get-go, but it's fine. Now camera, let's actually go into that. Now what you can see here is the OnePlus 5 camera. So I will just randomly show the pics. I didn't really sort them too much, but as you can see, low light looks nice outside. I still like the camera. I don't know why so many people say it's not a flagship cam. I think it's super, super close because pictures look detailed, especially here. The nice amount of sharpness, colors look nice, and I don't quite get it. Of course, if I look closer, there are like a handful of flagship phones that deliver a better picture maybe and so on, but the experience, I have to say, is great on the OnePlus 5. We also have the quite nice bokeh mode that I didn't quite have any pictures to show off yet, but as you can see, I'm totally happy with that. Also, front-facing cam, super nice. Definitely one of the better ones. Not the best one, but still, of course not always, but I totally dig that. Low light, yeah, not that great. You see a little bit grain and so on, but not a huge issue. And I know I'm getting quickly through it, but it's not necessary to take too much time, because as you can see, you can get so nice shots. So why even talk much about it? Okay, video. This is the big part. This is without, and we don't really even have to talk it. You can see it's quite shaky and so on. And this video is now with the latest update that got EIS, and it looks like on a gimbal. I definitely think it looks quite impressive. It feels a little bit less natural than it usually did, because the movements feel almost too good to be true. It just feels a little bit awkward, but it definitely is way better than what the Mi does, because it looks just so much more clean now, so much subtle. And also front facing, as you can see here, super close. It doesn't work out, but yeah, even a nice video cam for front facing, so I won't say anything else. Now let's quickly check what the Mi 6 has to offer. Of course, low light, I didn't show similar pictures on the OnePlus 5, but yeah, low light is okay. Here they are quite similar, but outside I have to actually say, if you look a little bit closer, if you compare them side by side, I actually have to say, and I know I said something different before in my flagship battle part 2, but I actually prefer the pictures from the main cam of the Xiaomi Mi 6. It just looks a little bit sharper, just a little bit more detailed, just a little bit more pleasant. Really comes down to personal preference, but if I just see this, it just looks a little bit more better. But yeah, it's really a minor thing. Nothing that really would break it. But yeah, I like it. Also, as you can see here, front-facing camera is also a little bit better. Not by much, a little bit more consistent, just a little bit, I would say just better. I don't know how else to express it. But if you check the video, of course, not nearly as stable, because it's not stabilized in any way. But if you don't have the most wobbly hand, it's still, especially in terms of quality, can easily be up on par. It's just not quite as shake-free, because as you can see, there is some movement going on, but the actual video quality is almost in some way even better, because the video itself looks a little bit cleaner, I would say. But yeah, that's about that. Front-facing camera, like I said, also just a tad little better. Now, let me summarize this once again and then get to the crux and tell you why I chose the Mi 6 as a whole package. Now, design. Like I said, the win goes for me to the Mi 6 just because it is more compact, it feels more premium. I like the button placement better. The fingerprint reader actually got a tad, almost not noticeable, a little bit better with MIUI 9. So it's still not on par with the OnePlus 5, but not far off. And the look. For me, the in and feel is a very important factor on buying a phone. And even though the OnePlus 5 feels great, not the black version, because if I would had the gray version that I had for my first review, it would have been a little bit closer, because the in and feel for me is super important. Now the display, I would have been super happy with both. And that's actually not an important factor, because for some reason, due to the better contrast, the more vibrant colors, I would have almost even, just for normal use, where the sharpness doesn't really bother me so much, chosen the OnePlus 5. So, draw. A little bit sharper, but the OnePlus 5 has just the better colors. Now, this one has the way better sunlight readability. Sound for the speaker goes definitely to the Mi 6. For the headphone, not by much, but by a little, goes to the OnePlus 5. Performance, I will actually give it to the Mi 6, because, like I said, it feels a little bit smoother. Sometimes just a little bit more fluid and way more consistent. That's the issue for me on the OnePlus 5, because even though it performs super smooth, I know not everyone, but I see this little bit of some still noticeable jitteriness. The wobble effect, the jello effect doesn't really bother me. I never really noticed that in normal use. But it was just that the few apps that I use, some of them just didn't run nearly as consistent. That's the little bummer. And I've seen this actually being not quite as smooth and fluid, but just more consistent on the OnePlus 3T. So that's why I think it could have something to do with the inverted screen. I don't really know. Battery life. Before I had this the second or third time actually, I would have given it the win. But now, due to the better standby drain and so on, I will actually give it a tie. Because this on Wi-Fi is better and in more heavy use performs a little bit better by maybe half an hour, maybe even sometimes an hour. But due to the better standby drain, if that is important for you, the OnePlus 5 would be better. Software. No, not even close. Definitely, even though MIUI 9 made some small nice improvements, OnePlus 5's Oxygen OS kills it. Camera. For selfies, not by a huge margin, the Mi 6. Low light, very similar, so a tie I would say. Main camera I would actually give to the Mi 6. And video, Mi 6. No, OnePlus 5, sorry, I got that wrong. So, what are my main reasons why I chose the Mi 6? First of all, unfortunately, I got the black version. If I would have had the gray version, it would have actually made quite a lot of an impact. And then maybe, if I wouldn't have been able to get a 128GB version in blue, I would have maybe actually chosen the OnePlus 5 to be a winner. But the problem for me is, as a reviewer, I have so many access to devices and I don't really use my daily driver on its own a lot. I have my SIM card like maybe 20 days a year, maybe a little bit more. In my daily driver, in my main phone, usually it's in test devices. And I just had to, it was more of a gut feeling because the issue was just I didn't like the black version and I had that. I would have had a gray version, then I would have had both and then I would have just dropped one. And at this point I could get a little bit more money from the OnePlus 5, so I sold that. But I would have been just as happy, if not even more so happy, if I would have had the gray version. So I'm not quite sure if this will help you. In the end, the design, the in-hand feel, the better speaker, I mean the quality, the slightly smoother performance and the possible better battery life made it for me. What could be also a reason for a few others would be the better main camera, but for other people also on the OnePlus 5, the better video. It also has the better software, cleaner, you will get better updates I think and so on. So I'm not quite sure, even after 17 minutes, if I have properly helped you. But I would just say if you prefer the smaller phone, the premium phone, the faster phone, the more consistent phone, which actually has higher end qualities in most aspects, even if just by a little, it would be the Mi 6. But the OnePlus 5 is an amazing phone. It is a top-notch phone and I really would actually kinda like to have both, but it just doesn't make much sense. I can invest that money in the channel in a better way, and yeah. I know that is not maybe properly the answer that you would have wished for, but I can't really help you anymore. I told you all my subjective, my objective opinions, my experience of using it, because just the use experience is better on the OnePlus 5 with the software. But the performance and the few minor negligences that I don't think they can fix by now, because some people actually don't see this jitteriness. I see it. My eyes are very sensitive to that. And not that it really would have bothered me. Same as for the not that high-res screen. But if you have such two amazing phones on such a high level, it really comes down to personal minor things. And those just let me prefer the Mi 6. I have no idea what else to say, but what you can tell me down there in the comments below is what you think, what you prefer, for which reasons, and if you maybe have chosen now because of this kind of weird comparison. Okay, it was way too long for something that I didn't really even show off with both devices, but I wanted to give you the best possible answer, even though it wasn't a proper answer. Okay, until next time, bye.